Injuries have been an issue during this training camp, and thankfully a lot of the guys are getting healthy. We find out who's getting healthy, who's trending in the right direction from Shane Steichen, and also a couple of questions, not necessarily answers, but some questions to Steichen about the quarterback competition that was won by Daniel Jones. How's Anthony Richardson taking it? What does Jones look like now that kind of this thing has been decided? All that. Here's Shane Steichen.
Well, I think, he's one play away, from going into an actual game, and don't want to take the risk there in that situation. We got a lot of our threes and fours playing in this game. It's their last opportunity to go prove it, to make a 53-man roster, and that's where it's at.
Are there any guys who have maybe missed preseason action that they would be more in your twos or ones that you're going to play for just to get them work?
Yeah, I think we signed a few guys too here the last couple of weeks that are probably going to get a lot of action too in this game. Like I said, I want to make sure our starters are healthy heading into week one. So you'll see a lot of different bodies out there on Saturday.
Well, have you determined how much Riley and Jason are going to play each?
Yeah, Riley will play the first half, and then Bean will play the second half.
This is with Riley. I mean, once the season starts, he won't get a lot of work. Because so, what's the value of Saturday for him?
I think it's big. Being a rookie, getting out there in the game-like atmosphere for him. He's gotten some good reps in training camp. To get a whole half of action will be good for him and his development.
What do you hearing health-wise for?
Well, he will not. He will not.
What are you hearing health-wise from some of your core guys, especially?
They're all tracking well. I'll say that. I think a lot of those guys hopefully will be back next week, and then for sure I think they'll be back for a week.
Getting Jalen and Juju back with that corner, you obviously have to feel better with the cornerback position.
Yeah, for sure. We want to get those guys back out there and healthy, and obviously Juju practiced today, and Jones was tracking well. So Juju will get some reps on Saturday, get those game reps, and if you get those guys back, it'll be big for the depth.
What's up, Buck dealing with?
He's got it back right now. Yeah.
Shane, did anybody maybe around the league reach out to you after the decision, just, I don't know, expressing support, advice, anything?
Yeah, people reach out all the time when stuff like that happens, and I'll keep those conversations private, but I had good conversations with people around the league.
Shane, when Anthony got that game you mentioned, I actually, what do you think you could have done throughout the development process to help, I guess, not get to that point again? You mentioned the injuries that he's going through. Well, beyond injuries, what other things do you think you could have done to help develop and play and get to where he needs to go?
Yeah, I think that's a process. It's a day in and day out process. Like I said, just in the meetings, the classroom, the fundamentals of everything, and continue to work and stride in those areas. And he has made improvements in those areas, and I think he's going to continue to improve in those areas.
Well, because what you specifically done, what do you think you could have done differently?
Well, I think you look back in those situations, like I said, I mentioned the injuries, but again, meeting with them, met a lot with them during those injuries, just obviously from a mental standpoint, staying in it. And I think he did a good job with that. He's continuing to improve with that. So those things in the classroom, continue to develop that. I think that's just an ongoing process, is what we're going through.
Shane, given the fact that guys in this game could turn into Zaire Franklin, as a 7th round pick, or Kenny Moore was an undrafted guy, just how much effort does the coaching staff put into evaluating each game when you have all those preseason scores?
Yeah, no, they're big. I think sometimes I've been around guys in a third preseason game. Austin Eckler is a great example. When I was at the Charge with him, we played in San Francisco, and he caught a couple passes and broke away and kind of made a name for himself in that game for us, and we kept him on the roster, and he's become a great player in this league for a long time. So, you never know who it's going to be for us this year. So I'm excited to see those guys go and play Saturday.
Shane, guys have talked about how Daniel really pours himself into the job and his presence being here a lot and all that stuff. How does that? How do you see that sort of help raise his game? What's the direct correlation there?
Yeah, I think it's a great correlation. A guy that's he loves the process. In here early, the work ethic. Obviously, being a veteran player, seeing a lot of ball. The way he talks to the receivers about route discipline and certain things with the offensive line, I think will pay dividends for us.
Is he? I think a couple of guys even said he's pretty assertive about that stuff with the guys. I mean, we talked to him and he's quiet as a mouse. So, how do you see him sort of assert himself that way?
You see it on the practice field all the time after play. So bring guys over, hey, on this play, hey, make this adjustment here. I like this versus this coverage. If they're playing this, shoot, you might need to break that route off a little sooner rather than later. All those little details that go into it, like I said, with those guys, and they're taken to it. Like I said, I think it'll pay dividends.
Shane, how would you evaluate just the job that Cam Turner's done in the quarterback's room since you got here, specifically with Anthony and all those kind of behind-the-scenes areas?
Yeah, no, I think he's been very detailed. Cam is very meticulous about the breakdowns, the note-taking, going over every detail, situations that could come up in the game. Obviously, when you're going through a game week prep, and even in the off-season, I think he does a great job with that stuff. And he treats everybody the same, coaches everybody hard. But I think he's very detailed in that aspect.
You guys' penalty numbers have been high in the preseason. Usually you're a pretty good penalty team. Do you chalk that up to preseason emphasis, or
that's a
huge benefit?
No, I know. I think a lot of teams have had around the league, and that's a huge emphasis. That's one of the first things I always go over in the team meeting is the penalty report, whether it's practice or joint practices or preseason games, of eliminating those things. And a lot of those things, sometimes you can't control some of the things. Sometimes you get a call that you may not like, you could disagree with it, but a lot of those things come down to technique and fundamentals, the holding stuff. Got to eliminate those. False starts, they're all controllable things. And so I make a big point of emphasis on that, going into the season.
Shane, why do you think you all should be trusted to, help Daniel Jones play better football than he has as of late or recently in the last couple of years? The last time you were trusted to develop a quarterback, he was benched for a second time.
Yeah, I think, when you go through a process, and Daniel's, going into year 6 had, some highs there in New York and then had some lows. But the way he's attacked it, the communication that I've had with him, that Jim Bob's had with him, that Cam's had with him, it's been very fluid in that regard. So I feel confident in that.
You feel good about
A couple more?
Josh Downs for week 1, or is he?
I do. I feel good with Josh, yeah.
Mentally, how do you think Anthony's handling this situation? Do you think he's deflated or anything like that? Just a couple days removed from it.
You know what? I've had great conversations with him the last 2 days. Obviously, when I let him know the news, he handled it great like a pro. Talked to him yesterday in my office, and he was great. He just said, "Hey, man, I'm going to continue to work." And I said, "You're one play away." He said, "You're right, I'm one play away." So he's been great.
When do you think it shifted from he needs to play to get better, I guess get the reps, to he needs to sit to get better?
Well, I think we had a competition. I made that very clear, and I'm very transparent about the competition, and those guys were competing for a job. And Daniel won the job, and so now he's going to see it in a different light.
And what's Anthony's long-term future here? How do you see what plan do you all have for him to develop?
We're going to continue to develop in the meeting rooms, on the practice field, fundamentals, details. Still go through your process like you're going to be a starter because you're one play away.
All right, thanks, guys.
There's Shane Steichen, and you feel like there's almost a relief that the decision has been made, it's over, and now they can kind of move on, and Daniel Jones is the guy, and so let's build this offense around what he does well, knowing that Anthony Richardson is, like Steichen said, one play away, all of that. The good news from what Shane had to say is in the injury issue. As the Colts have dealt with injuries, a lot to the quarterbacks, and we saw Juju Brents back out there today, Kenny Moore back out there today, Jalen Jones, Steichen says, is trending in the right direction for the opener. Josh Downs trending in the right direction. Kwity Paye out there again today. It looks like this team is getting healthier, and that's a good thing because it's all hands on deck for the Dolphins.